What do Eazy E, Dr. Dre, Will.i.am, and LA's hottest real estate market have in common?
So it was me and Jerry lived in one house. Eazy lived 2 doors down on Wellesley, and Dre lived on Newcastle. Jerry needs you to go over to Dre's house. There's a problem. So I drive up there. Somebody lets me in. I start walking through, and I'm thinking, like, this is going to be the end of me.
And a lot of people are wondering what's going on with the market right now.
So I think if you're going to invest in real estate today, I think you need a day job, and I think investing needs to be that's your side hustle. Here's one thing I will tell you. My biggest mistake and regret is selling everything I sold. I regret. There's not one thing I don't regret. Not one.
Welcome to No Vacancy, where I share conversations with LA's top multifamily owners, investors, and visionaries. I'm your host, Taylor Avakian, the founder of the Group CRE, and I specialize in the sale of apartment buildings in Los Angeles. On this show, we cut straight to what matters, market insights and real-world strategies straight from LA's multifamily icons to help you navigate one of the most complex real estate markets in the world, Southern California. Enjoy. Terry, your story is anything but conventional. Can you give us a glimpse onto how the journey began in the music industry and how that led you into real estate?
Let me see. Where do I start? I was fortunate enough to have an uncle that was in the music business, and his name was Jerry Heller. And anybody out there that's a fan of hip hop has heard of him. And he had a very illustrious career in rock and roll. Fell in some hard times, went through a divorce, had maybe little substance abuse issues. So my uncle found himself on my grandmother's couch, unfortunately. And we were always super close. He never had kids. He was married a couple times, but was my father's brother, 9 years older. And literally from the time I was basically out of diapers, because he didn't want to change any diapers, we were attached to the hip.
Yeah.
So I was able, he would take me, the movie There'll Be Blood?
Yeah.
When the Daniel Day-Lewis character would bring the kid in and say, oh, this is my partner? Like, that's how I felt. He'd walk me into these crazy meetings with guys like Tommy Mottola, major music people. And I would either wait in the lobby or go to dinners with him.
Must have been crazy.
It was crazy. And he was a wild dude, very wild dude. Certainly didn't portray him accurately in Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, did Paul Giamatti do him justice?
No, not at all.
No.
Wrong guy.
Really?
Yeah, wrong guy to play that guy. Wrong guy to play my uncle.
Who do you think would have been better?
That's a good question. My uncle was tall, slick, had this white hair. He was the first guy, I think, in LA that really rocked the Porsche sunglasses, the ones with the yellow lenses. He was kind of famous for that. And he was just cool. He walked into a room, and it's funny, when we'd walk into like Monty's, which is still there in Woodland Hills. That was one of our go-to because, we all lived right next door in Mountain View.
Yeah.
So it was me and Jerry lived in one house. Eazy lived 2 doors down on Wellesley, and Dre lived on Newcastle. So when those guys started making money, everybody moved out here. The first thing they did. But we could go back to that. But Jerry'd walk into a room, and Eazy walk in a room, and just as many people were looking at Jerry, even though they may not know who he was. He had that something.
Swagger.
Yeah, he just had this charisma. Like he was a special dude.
Mm-hmm.
Loud guy, interesting guy. But looking back on all that stuff, the NWA and the start of Ruthless Records, there was not one man on the planet equipped to bring that whole movement to life, to light. I remember Jerry coming home one day, and this is before we lived there, because at this point he started making a few bucks prior to meeting Eazy and repping. Dre was in a group called World Class Wrecking Crew before NWA.
Okay.
So Jerry actually knew Dre before Eazy, and he had another group called LA Dream Team, which had a local hit record, and he also repped a guy named Egyptian Lover. So Jerry started making money again, bought a place in Simi Valley, and like I said, I was always with Jerry. I mean, we traveled together, traveled the world together. I was always with him.
How old were you?
I started, as an infant. And by this point, mid 80s, I was like 11, 12, sort of when the hip hop thing started.
So you're 12 years old hanging out with Dre, Eazy, and these superstars.
If you go to my Instagram, you can see pictures of me and Dre at my high school graduation.
It's crazy.
Back then, we didn't have cameras in our pocket, right? So you didn't think about it. I think I have 2 pictures with Eazy and 1 or 2 with Dre. It's crazy. When Jerry passed away, I, inherited all his belongings. So there were some crazy pictures. In fact, you could find it online. There was a picture that I posted of Dre and my grandmother, and somebody cut her head off and put Betty White, and it went crazy viral. Crazy viral.
Really?
And I got a couple calls, I forget, from some magazines or whatever, because it was my picture, and it was pretty funny. So I have a bunch of pictures that people haven't seen yet. I should have brought them with me.
That's amazing.
So
you learned a ton from Jerry, and then you give me the basically foray into real estate. But I know in the beginning, your first gig was doing music videos, right?
Well, no, not quite. Okay. There was a step before that. So knowing those guys, I graduated high school. I go to college. I'm an antsy guy. I started going to Ruthless Records, which is right here in Woodland Hills. And I'm like, Jerry, I want a job. And he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, I'll do anything. I'll be a gopher. Like 18, 19 at the time. Because you got to talk to Eric. Easy. So I go to Eazy. Eazy goes, you got to talk to Jerry. This is their game, man, right? So finally, I convince them to hire me. They pay me $100 a week. And this is like the early 90s. This isn't the early 20s.
Yeah.
But I was just happy to have a job.
Yeah.
So I'd go there in the mornings, get my day going, go to school, come back, go back to school. And in fact, I could tell you a funny story. My first day of working, this is before we moved to Calabasas. We were all in I was in Westlake Village. Dre was in Oak Park. Eazy was in Westlake. NWA was on tour. I get a call. My cousin once removed, but my dad and my uncle's first cousin, worked for us, or worked for my uncle. And he calls me, says, Jerry needs you to go over to Dre's house. There's a problem. I go, what's the problem? Because I was already out there. I don't know. The mover said there's an issue. You got to go over there. Nobody's supervising this. So I go over there, and there's 8 or 10 movers. And, these guys are all tatted up, and they look for sure, some of these guys did some prison time. I think one of them you mentioned to me. And they walked me to, it was like a production tract home. Nothing crazy. This time, Dre was just starting to make money. Eazy was just starting to make money. And I walk into Dre's, they bring me up to Dre's primary, and in his closet, there's a moving mat and 20 guns. It was literally like a scene out of a movie, Get Him to the Greek. And they're like, I'm like, what do you want me to do with these? And they're like, we're not touching them. We can't touch these, man. I go, holy shit. So I call, I don't even remember if we had a cell phone then, but I call Gary, our cousin. I said, what do you want me to do? He goes, deal with it. And also Dre's Corvette's in the garage. So take his Corvette, take the guns, and go to the new house, which is the Calabasas.
Oh my God.
It's first day of work. So I go, guys, you got to just help me carry these. We fold them into the mat. I know nothing about guns. We put them, from my memory, if my memory serves me right, in the Corvette, there's a little niche in the back.
Uh-huh.
We push the guns in there. I get in the vet and drive them to the house. And I'm thinking this is going to be the end of me. I'm going to get pulled over. I don't have registration. It's not my car. And I have 20 guns. And there were street sweepers and Uzis and all kinds of crazy
Oh
shit.
My gosh.
So anyways, that was the first day of work. But I started off there being, I guess, kind of like a gopher of sorts. And within a couple months, I convinced them to let me try to find talent. And the term for that is A&R, artist and repertoire. And at the time, I was going out all the time. And there was a hip-hop club that was started by 4 actors. One of them was David Faustino, Bud Bundy, Robert Gavin, Bobby Jacoby, actually 5 guys. One guy named Nick Adler, who was not an actor. His father was a guy named Lou Adler, very famous music guy. They own the Roxy, and I believe they own a bunch of stuff. And the dad did some major movies, substantial guy. And another guy named Dan Eisenstein, who is a Beverly Hills local guy. And while I was going there, they would have these freestyle contests. And one night, a guy gets up on stage, and I just saw him dancing with a crew of guys, and they were incredible. Their style was cool. There was something like I'd never seen before. They were like wearing knickers and almost like thrift clothes, but curated really cool. And the guy freestyled and beat this other guy. And his name was Will.i.am, which later changed to Will.i.am. And I walked up to him and I said, hey, I work at Ruthless Records, which at the time everybody knew.
Yeah.
And we went outside, sat on Highland Boulevard and spoke for like an hour and a half on my Mustang. And I convinced him to let me manage him. And he allowed me. And he goes, by the way, I have a group. At the time, they're called At Band Clan, a tribe beyond a nation. Clan, Klann, inspired by Tribe Called Quest and some of the East Coast stuff. Sort of what was going on the East Coast with this whole movement called Native Tongue. Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, Leaders of the New School. So they were trying to do that in LA, which at the time was a bunch of gangster rap.
Yeah.
It was something completely far-fetched and not something that was happening. So certainly way ahead of the time. And signed the rest of the guys to a management deal, and then got him a deal at Ruthless Records. And to make a long story short, they never came out, which is the best thing that ever happened to them.
So what do you mean by that? They never came out?
Well, Eazy died.
Got it.
And, Eazy went through some, I would call them like creative challenges and difficult times because Cube left.
Mm-hmm.
Dre left with the whole Suge Knight stuff. And then at the time, there was just a bunch of artists that weren't really popping. And fortunately, we signed Bone Thugs, which I was part of that as well, Bone Thugs and Harmony. But he didn't understand those guys. Will was recently on The Breakfast Club and pissed me off because he said that Eazy signed him, which I guess you can make an argument that he did. But really, at the end of the day, I signed him.
Yeah.
Look.
You're the one who, hour and a half, you found him.
But look, Eazy had to bless it. But he just wasn't, he didn't see the vision. Jerry saw the vision for sure.
Yeah.
But the best thing that happened to them is they never came out. They ended up getting signed to Interscope.
Got it. And then
the Fergie came. Yeah, Fergie came along, and they really needed to be. They needed time to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I think, to Interscope's credit, Jimmy Iovine's credit, whoever else was involved, they saw the talent that I saw, and they gave him time to develop. I will tell you that we probably did 150, 200 songs, and not one of them was a hit. And you could hear the raw talent. Like, the guys could rap their asses off. But there's a big difference between being a freestyle rapper and being able to rap really well and crafting an amazing song. And it took Will a long time to figure that out, but obviously he figured it out.
So that's super interesting to me because obviously you being inside of there, you can understand what's a hit, right? Which I'm going to parallel that to the real estate stuff. When you were looking at buildings to invest in, right? Because we didn't get to the transition, but you eventually started buying some real estate. When you're looking at a building, can you envision like what a hit is going to be? Can you envision what this looks like at the end of it? Is that a skill that you picked up from what you did previously?
100%. I actually think that's a great correlation. Being able to sort of identify talent.
Yeah.
And see something, because from the record company, I ended up directing Bone Thugs and Harmony's first video because I was involved with the signing and all that. Definitely was a person that didn't need other people to tell me what to do or how to do it. If I believed in something, I went all in. So that's a great correlation. I could definitely see a shitty property and have a vision for it. And I didn't need a designer. I didn't need a broker. I didn't need a property manager. I could look at something and go, okay, I could see the vision. Listen, when I opened up Plan Check, my first restaurant on Sawtell, I will tell you that out of the 10 people I spoke to, 10 of them told me I was an idiot. Out of the 10 people I spoke to them, 10 of them told me you have to do Asian food on that street. You can't do American food. So I listened, and there are people that have great advice, but sometimes you just got to just go with your gut. And, one of sort of circling back to the music stuff and what formed me in my DNA as a business guy, I remember being in a studio with Dre, and he used to have me come all the time. I used to think he just liked hanging out with me, but I figured out years later, he realized I was a demographic. I'm 14, 15, 16 at the time. And he's like, do you like this? Do you not like this? And because of our relationship, I was unfiltered. I would say to him, Dre, this is shit. I can't stand this record. Or I'd say, this is unbelievable. And he would do that. He would literally play me records. We'd sit in his car. I'd go to the studio in Torrance. I would go to the office.
Do you remember a song where you thought it was a banger and ended up being a banger?
Well, the whole 100 Miles of Running and End for Life. I heard all that stuff and I was like, this is crazy. Yeah. There's another group that I was there for a lot of it called Above the Law. I was actually one of their music videos. I got to see if I could see myself in it, called Murder Rap. Yeah, I mean, definitely heard stuff and had like, it did something to me. Yeah, you could feel it. I felt something. Yeah. But I remember being in the studio with him and I was like, Dre, how do you know? Because at this point, he was Dre. Like, he was untouchable. He was so good, man. And he just had this ability to pick hits and make hits better than other people. And mind you, he had a team of guys, whether it was somebody programming, whether it was somebody playing guitar, but the way he would pull it all together. And I remember him going like this. He just points here and I'm like, what's this? He goes, I feel it. Like, what do you mean? He goes, I know, I could just feel whether it's the shit or not. And that stuck with me for my whole life to this day. I really try to tap into my instincts. And, we've all been there before, right? Whether it's somebody you're dating, whether it's a feeling you get when you meet somebody, whether it's a deal. And sometimes that little voice that you're listening to, not sometimes, most of the time, is right. But you push it away, you don't tap into it. So I definitely tap into it.
Do you remember the first deal that you did? Give me the story of the first deal. How did it go from this in the music industry to I'm a real estate investor?
So my first deal was in Long Beach. Again, everybody told me, my LA friends because I had a lot of buddies that grew up in LA that either came from families that own a lot of real estate or were real estate guys themselves.
You're around it.
And I remember one of my friends would send out mailers. And at the time because I was a director, not only was I a director, I had a production company. So I had like a dozen directors. I probably had 10 employees. At this point, it's 2005. I'm like early 30s. And I'm just not feeling the business. And I see the digitization thing happening. I'm seeing budgets drop. And I just have a sinking feeling that like, this shit's about to change. So one of my buddies sent me a letter, like a sample letter, like, hey, my name's Terry Heller. I'm looking to buy properties in whatever the BS was. And I had an intern send out a couple thousand letters. And I don't know why I sent them to Long Beach, but I did. And my first deal was on 6th Street. Do you know Long Beach?
Yeah.
I think I might be wrong about the address, but it's 421 West 6th Street. It was 16 units.
Wow.
The guy calls me, goes, hey, I own the building. I'm a pastor. However, there's a broker that it's not listed, but I trust. Call this guy. His name's Ryan Sinelli. Is he still around?
I don't know the name.
He was around then.
Yeah.
So I call him up. I said, hey, I forget the gentleman's name. I'm interested in a deal. I go down there. I put it under contract. I have no clue what I'm doing. So immediately I start calling people. And that's something I think from being a director and being somebody that didn't really have any kind of formal training, I just started dialing for knowledge and dollars, and I wasn't raising money, but I did have two buddies. Both of them were kind of seasoned real estate guys, but they committed to putting in a third, and I was going to put in a third. I raised, I think it was $450, $450,000.
Got it.
Found a lender and started, finding property managers, and I met this escrow guy named Mark Brooks, who's still around today, who was a giant influence for me. I think he's at a company called Escrow of the West.
Okay.
But this guy, Mark Brooks, is the shit. So I started talking to him and different people. In the process of the due diligence, I noticed something that referenced condominium. So I was buying an apartment building built in the late 80s, but there was a reference of sorts to a condominium. So I call up Mark Brooks. I said, can you look at the title for me? He goes, you're buying a condominium that's functioning as an apartment building. I go, what do you mean? So he explains that. I go, so somebody built this as a condo, and the market was shitty at the time, and they had to wreck them. He goes, yeah, you could sell them. It's all you have to do is go to he phrased it this way: the brain surgery of getting the entitlement from the city as a condominium is done.
It was condo mapped.
It was condo mapped.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go to the Department of Real Estate, and within 90 days or so, you can get what they call the white paper, and you could individually sell these. And I was like, wow, so this is a condo conversion. So technically, yes. I mean, you're not really converting.
Yeah.
You're just perfecting what was already there.
Yeah.
So I go back to my partners. I go, listen, I think that we could do this conversion. They go, great, do it. So I did it. The day I closed, one of the guys who was like my age, the other guy was a little more senior than us, was going to meet me there. I don't want to say his name because he's an apartment guy out there. And he didn't show up. He had a contractor for us. Remember, I've never done any construction. I've never built anything. I have zero experience. The first day we close, I'm like ready to go. I'm impatient. Like, I'm 20 minutes early to this thing.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, let's fucking go. He didn't show. I call and goes, so-and-so can't make it. And I got tied up. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So my personality, I realized, okay, I can't rely on this guy, which is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Start finding, calling realtors. I find a contractor who ended up after that doing like 30 deals with me.
Wow.
And I figured it out. And like you're saying, it wasn't horrible. I think people would look at it today and go, oh, this is a really clean apartment. It was a clean apartment, wasn't great for condo. So I went in there. At the time, now my ex-wife had great taste. So I brought her along. She gave me some ideas and we did them and made a lot of money. It was very successful.
Wow.
But what I realized in that process was there's a little niche market there. There's a bunch of these 80s condos all over Long Beach. So I figured out how to identify them through a title company. So I got a list and started targeting them. And I ended up doing like 10 deals out there.
So you're doing all these condo conversions.
And I got to tell you, I made more money doing that than probably anything else I've ever done in real estate.
Really?
Yeah, I was super successful. What was great is, again, every guy in LA is like, fuck Long Beach. I think Snoop ruined it for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, fuck Long Beach. It's dangerous. It's not safe. What they don't know is Long Beach, 500,000 plus people.
Yeah.
52 square miles.
Great.
Yeah, but back then people were like,
well, yeah, Long Beach back.
LA guys were cocky. They're like, we're not going there.
Yeah.
So again, kind of like Sawtell with Plan Check, I was like, okay, everybody's telling me it's bad. It must not be. Because I got to tell you something I learned really on in real estate. When there's a consensus, it's usually wrong, right? When there's a consensus, because all real estate guys do is say what the other real estate guy does. There's not a lot of creative thinkers. For every Sam Zell or Richard Ziman or, Donald Bren, there's 7,000 guys and girls that just listen to what the other person's saying. When I ask people like, oh, what do you think about the rate cut? Like, every single comment is the same. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. It's just what real estate people do.
Interesting. So you learn and can see and have this From your background in the creative space, which is music, you were able to find that you looked where other people were not.
Right.
And found an opportunity. Basically, you created a blue ocean is what they call it nowadays. You go where other people are not and you take on challenges that other people don't see because they're just not willing to do it. But okay, talk to me about Plan Check. So you're doing the real estate stuff. How does Plan Check come to be?
Well, so I got in real estate about 2005, did a ton of deals.
How many deals?
Probably 30.
All in Long Beach?
No, all over LA.
Everywhere.
I was doing apartments,
Yeah.
doing some homes, but this conversion thing, I did deals in the Valley. I did a deal in Palisades. So I found this little niche that
So
at the time,
on a conversion thing, and
nobody was talking about it.
Yep.
It was kind of under the radar. By the time we got close to 2008, now you got Marcus guys tying them up themselves and trying to flip them or syndicate them. So at that moment in time, I knew the game was over. And fortunately, when the market corrected, I didn't lose 1 cent. All my deals, my worst performing deal was a break even because
that's great.
I was a little ahead of it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a very simple metric. If I paid $100,000 a door, if I couldn't sell for at least $200,000, I wasn't going to do the deal. Nothing super intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, I did not need to go to Wharton to figure that out. So every one of my deals met that. When I started seeing was guys buying deals, when it started becoming a thing now, guys were buying deals for 130 and trying to sell them for 225. And so pretty soon I noticed the margins going smaller and smaller. And I'm like, these guys are going to get their ass. If the market corrects just a little bit, they're toast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened.
Got it. Okay. And so in that point when the market 08, 09, 10 happened, is that when the Plan Check?
So here's the beautiful thing for me about the correction. Because I had one banking relationship, and there was I don't remember if there was like the bridge lending game then. I had a banking relationship doing 5-6% loans. And these bankers were in Chicago. If you wanted to, from my understanding, I think it's a FDIC. Is it FDIC? Yeah, FDIC rule. If you want to lend in a market, you had to have a branch. So they had a branch here in Century City, but like 2 people worked out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And their main branch is in Chicago. They raise funds by, if they needed to raise money, if the money market, if other banks were paying 3.5% for money market, they'd pay 25 or 50 bips more and get as much money as they needed. And they put the money out. They would lend on the money, right? So, really got along with them well. Unfortunately, these gentlemen, these brothers who were also developers and were doing conversions all over, passed away in a plane crash. And this is months before the crash. And I get a call from the owner of the bank, who's also the CEO, said, "Hey, you know about these guys. I have a project in Santa Barbara. Can you do me," because I was living in Westlake Village, can you do me a huge favor? Go up there. Can you snap some pictures? It's 98% complete. Maybe you can help me find a broker or get some proposals. We're going to list them and sell them. They also had 2 other projects in the Valley, but this one was quote unquote completed. So I drive up there. Somebody lets me in. I start walking through and it's a disaster. It's 11 units on Lower State Street.
Mm-hmm.
No, excuse me, Upper State Street. So great neighborhood.
Yeah.
Beautiful Spanish, but the cabinets are all jacked. These guys you're too young, but there were guys bringing in like materials from overseas, and I believe they brought in bad drywall. So I could see like black mold on the drywall. The cabinets were all jacked. To finish it, they weren't done.
Yeah.
There were no appliances.
Not 98% done.
I would say from like just looking at it and not realizing how many problems there were, 70%. So I call my friend and I said, "Listen, you got a problem. You're not 98%. The guy literally starts screaming at me. I'm like, "I don't know why you're screaming at me." He goes, "You don't know what you're talking about." He goes, "Meet my president of the bank. he's going to meet you over there. So the president of the bank meets me over there, and he's like, he calls Mitchell, was his name, and goes, yeah, there's an issue here. Not only that, I think they use a shitty drywall, and the floors look crummy, and the cabinets are cheap looking. And if we want to get 7 figures for these, I forget what the numbers were, but at the time, like low 1.2, 1.4 million, which doesn't sound crazy today.
Yeah.
But then it was definitely premium.
Yeah.
This is before the market started, like there was a shakeup in the market. So they go, all right, Terry, can you put a budget together? I've never done this for anybody. Can you put a budget together and can you just finish it for us? So I started doing that for them. And then they had me do it for the other 2 deals that were further behind. So now I'm doing 3 deals and they're paying me fairly well. And I'm not marking up the budgets, but they're giving me like, I think at one time they proposed, hey, do you want a piece of the deal? Because the borrower's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I go, I didn't like their basis. And I just said, just pay me like a monthly fee.
Yeah.
So I think they're paying me like $5,000 a month for this. And, I probably technically could have marked up, but I'm not a contractor. I'm not
You're
super
just getting these deals over the finish line.
And I didn't even think of it as a business for me. I was just trying to help them out because they're good guys.
Yeah.
So I'm doing Santa Barbara. I'm doing 2 in the Valley. And then the market goes to shit. And I start getting calls now from them. Hey, we have this deal in Koreatown. Can you go over there? We have a problem. I go over to Koreatown. I'm like, guys, it's not Koreatown. Like, you may say it's Koreatown, but it's not really.
Is this Pico Union or Westlake?
It's more like, I think it was more like Westlake.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay building. But the crazy thing is I went in there and literally there was one tenant. The borrower rented it out without them knowing to a tenant, but it was a brothel. I'm just remembering this now. And it was this, like, you'd see dudes coming in and out of there.
Whoa.
And they had like, they had like, I'm trying to remember how many units it was. It was like, because I did a lot of these.
Yeah.
I'll get into this.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like 20 units and they had like 10 of them, 8 of them. And they were living in a couple of them. But you'd walk in and there was all these rooms with like massage tables.
Oh my God.
It was wild. The good news is they were shady and I got them out. No problem. But again, I had to go in there. There were some things that weren't finished. They never finaled. They didn't have their C of O, like some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe they had their C of O. So before I know it, I have like 17 of their projects because they were lending at high loan to cost, like 85% loan to cost.
Wow.
So little adjustment in the market. I did a deal for them in Malibu. They had some good assets. So fortunately, I got really lucky while everybody was getting their asses handed to them. I had this little business. So now I've got an in-house GC and we're doing these. And my wife at the time has helped me with design. And so we're just doing this. And I knew it was going to come to an end. It took me about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And never going through a recession and having 3 small children, I was like, how am I going to make a living? Now, at this point, the music business is decimated, right? Napster, all that nonsense. So I had this stupid idea of doing a restaurant, which every asshole has that idea. Everybody.
And everyone tells you don't do it. Everyone now a restaurant says don't do a restaurant, right?
I'm sure you have an idea, right? Have you ever thought about it?
Seriously, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most people, now it's common to say don't do a restaurant.
Yeah.
But at one point, everybody has a hotel idea.
Got it.
And everybody has a restaurant idea.
Yeah.
So I opened up Plan Check in February 2012. And unfortunately, it was really successful. And I'm not saying that to be a smart guy.
Yeah.
Because I should have went right back to real estate. Instead, I opened up an 1,800 square foot restaurant that was crushing the numbers. I mean,
how did it? Why?
Again, just trusting my instincts. I took the chef from Umami Burger and I had this vision of doing comfort food, what I called remixed. So when I met with him, I said, listen, everything we do, I want it to be like, if we do a burger, I want there to be something that is just completely unique, but it's not a huge departure. It's still a burger. So we came up with ketchup leather, dehydrated ketchup. We had a very, very, very robust Japanese whiskey program paying homage to the neighborhood. We used a lot of Japanese ingredients, which umami was already doing, but we took it to another level because they were just like a burger concept.
Yeah.
So we had, short rib and all kinds of other things. And it was super successful. And, my personality is, okay, I'm going to go do 99 more.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, as I started opening these, minimum wage went up. We started feeling those headwinds, started getting very crowded, this space. And they were all pretty successful, but nothing ever topped Sawtelle, which is still there today.
Mm-hmm.
And about 4 years ago, right before COVID, I got bought out and went back to real estate. But yeah.
Would you have done, so what you're saying is it went well and you probably learned a lot. Would you have rather have just kept buying and doing real estate stuff?
Yeah.
Really?
Kept the one.
Yeah. And then,
manageable.
And then just gone and done the real estate stuff.
But it's hard because, I had all these people approaching me like, you have no idea. The biggest of the biggest, like Richard Melman calls me one day, who I didn't even know who he was. And that's like one of the biggest restaurateurs in the planet.
What is his?
Based out of Chicago, let us entertain you. I got to think, Maybe, Jamie at Joe Rogan, is he like our Jamie? Can you look, do you have Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Can you look up Richard Melman, how many restaurants this guy owns? It's going to be like Joe Stonecrab. He didn't start it, but he licensed it in Vegas. This guy's a major deal.
Yeah.
So I get a call from this guy to meet with me because like we were super special for a moment. But I think some of the success was getting very lucky because that street exploded right when we went in. Also, I started doing really cool collaborations that people just weren't doing. I did a deal with Stussy because I was friends with those guys.
110.
Okay, 110 restaurants. And when I say like 110 restaurants, we're talking about like, some of them doing 20, 25.
Yeah.
30.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a major guy.
Yeah.
But, when we opened this, again, my approach, I had no background, never worked in a restaurant. So I did a deal with Stussy. I did a deal with Sanrio, who owns the licensing for Hello Kitty and had all these characters. So we were doing all...
Dude, that's so before your time because now everything's collaborations. Everything's collaborations, McDonald's and Oreos, Coke and Oreos.
Doritos and Taco Bell.
Yeah, right?
So I was looking, just because I come from that world, that like streetwear world where like I knew the Undefeated guys and the Stussy guys and the Supreme guys and they were just cool.
Yeah.
And I liked their
Culture.
shit and I wore their clothes. So these shoes are from Undefeated. Like I still wear them.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my buddy, Adam Weissman. Adam Weiss. Some dude I knew. I didn't go to Beverly, but he went to Beverly. And I said, hey, I'm opening up this restaurant. Do you want to do a collab of some sorts? And they were doing stuff with Roy Choi, but like giving him clothes and stuff to wear. And I was like, let's do a collaboration. Let's have all my staff wear your shirts that you design. So we took the Plan Check logo and the Stussy logo and it fit perfectly. The SS and the Plan Check. And we didn't even sell the shirts. And we did a menu inspired by Stussy and their legacy.
Wow.
So, when you find kind of that cool inspiration, my chef was inspired because he was a skater, surfer guy like me. I grew up playing water polo, surfing. I wasn't a big skater, but I was around it.
You're around culture.
Yeah. So I understood that, and I did not have big marketing budgets. And I knew how, remember, I come from the world of hip hop. So street marketing was invented from that world. So the concepts and the ideas that we did were for a lack of, we had to be creative because we didn't have the cash.
You didn't have the budget. You were guerrilla marketing. You had to figure out,
Correct.
Okay, how can we create buzz around our restaurant? How can we get people in the door? How can we do all that stuff to grow it? And you took the lessons from the hip hop world and added them to a restaurant.
I remember with the Bone Thug stuff, I was dealing with all their marketing. I directed Thuggish Ruggish Bone for the Love of Money, their first 2 videos. We had no money. So I was always trying to think of ways to just like get a leg up. So when we shot the video, we're like, let's go to Cleveland. My dad and my uncle really, and the Heller side, originally from Cleveland. I've never been. So I was like, let's go to Cleveland and just shoot this really raw video.
Yeah.
At the time, Will.i.am introduced me to some SC film students. I shot this little promo with them for Bone Thugs where they're around an oil drum and they're doing their little, they had this, the first day I met them, they came in and they did this, you know, they had like 12 guys with them, but like 5 were in the group. And they did this, I can't sing, but they did this like, East 99 is where your farmers sling them on, yeah, yo. And they're like singing, but talk about dealing drugs. I was like, this is fuck. And they weren't rapping, they were just harmonizing for me. That's the first time I met them at Ruthless before anybody met them. And that's a whole other story too. So I had them doing that around an oil drum that I lit on fire. Eazy loved it. He's like, okay, I need you to pick a director because we're going to go shoot this video. And so they gave me some reels, and I was looking at the reels going, this shit is garbage. You know, and I was cocky. I wouldn't say I was cocky, but I was like, I could do better.
Yeah.
So I go to Eazy, and I'm like, let me do it. He goes, what do you know? I go, I did the promo, even though I didn't quote directed it. I go, what's the budget? And I want to say he said the budget was $100,000. I go, I'll do it for 50. He goes, done.
Oh my God.
So, but this whole idea of being resourceful, you know, we didn't use words like viral back then, or maybe, I don't even know if we even said words like street marketing.
Yeah.
But we knew to get the word out, you had to do something because we're not going to buy radio time. We're not going to buy airtime on commercials. We're probably not going to get on MTV. You know, NWA, they couldn't play our shit on NWA.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, they sold like 2 or 3 million records. And literally, like, Jerry was showing me, video plays, 0, even though we shot a video.
Whoa.
So we understood the power of the street. So I have always had that embedded in everything I do, including my new roofing company I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, part of my DNA.
Jeez. And so you took, obviously, for the real estate stuff too, because I know we worked on a couple of stuff in Koreatown. That's how we initially connected, because that's my hood. It's still my hood. And you've been able to bring that inspiration not only from the music to the restaurant, but to the real estate too, and then now to your roofing company. This is a newer thing that we talked about.
I closed escrow 13 weeks ago. Again,
why roofing?
You know, it's one of the trades I've always had problems with. That and millwork, cabinets. And what I love about roofing is you're not going inside people's homes or properties most of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm staring at a roof right there. I look at roofs.
We'll get you the number. No, I know it's like
I look at roofs so different now, and rain a lot different too.
Yeah.
Just something that I thought, I can control labor easier. Like, I've done so many. I have a project I'm about to take to market that I built in Beverly Hills. And just the delays with the cabinet guy, but the roof is much more manageable. So I made the decision about 6 months ago that I need to buy a roofing company. I saw the writing on the wall with real estate. I think right now, if you're a young person and you come to me and said, I want a career in real estate in LA, I would tell you not to. I would tell you not to get into real estate.
Why?
100%.
Why?
That's probably not great for your.
No. I'm curious to know why.
I think the game's over on some levels. I think that there's always. I think Jim Cramer says on CNBC, there's always money to be made in the market. I believe in that. But if you want to get into lending or brokerage or construction, I just think between, why, all the headwinds, permitting, the cost to run these buildings, you're constantly fighting, what's the new thing, Prop 33? You just always fucking have headwinds.
Yeah.
COVID, headwind. Prop 33, headwind. Rent control. ULA. So what's the next thing that we can't see coming around the corner? I got tired of it. I mean, I had the Beverly Hills project. I have projects in Phoenix I'm doing right now. But I wanted something that, for once in my career, was on the right side of recessions. And so I saw where the market was going. I called a buddy who owned service type businesses. I said, do you have a mergers and acquisitions attorney? I need to find a good business broker, which are very difficult to find. And I got a name of an attorney who's a local guy, and he gave me a business broker's name. And in 2 weeks, I had a existing roofing company, guy retiring under contract. Took us quite some time to close because of him. And close this thing. And in the first 7 weeks, we beat all of his sales in 23. And that was one of his best years.
How did you, how?
I know a lot of guys like you. Yeah.
Because you're in the real estate business. So it made sense too. Because it's like me being a broker, right? I know a bunch of real estate investors who are very wealthy. So people come to me and they say, help me raise money. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Like, I don't really do that, but I know this guy who's really wealthy and invests in real estate. So you knew, and you had a base of clientele per se.
And it's an adjacent business, right?
Very adjacent.
So again, there's scarcity and quality in trades, and especially roofing. And I can't tell you, it's so interesting. If you and I if we walked into a bar and we were sitting in a bar and you tell somebody, I'm a commercial broker, and I tell somebody I'm a roofer, 9 out of 10 times, maybe 19 out of 20 times, someone says to me, I don't have a good roofer. But how many people know a realtor? And I'm not making light of it. I'm saying,
no, it's true.
So, the way I approach the roofing is the way I approach Plan Jack, and it's the way I approach real estate. It's not a very complicated business, but my branding is on point. Our website's on point. Our marketing's on point. My crews are dialed the way they look. Our vehicles are wrapped. And our culture, our ethos is we're customer obsessed. If there's, now we've done, I don't know how many roofs in
13 weeks?
In 13 weeks, we've probably done 30 roofs.
Oh my gosh.
Because, there's jobs on the board, maybe more.
Yeah. But you have stuff in the pipeline too. So I'm sure there's a lot.
We've done about 2.5 roofs a week on the resi side.
Yeah.
And we've probably done a half a dozen commercial roofs. So we've done a lot. And we've had a couple issues, right? You're going to have issues.
Yeah.
A couple of them on the resi side, and teaching my guys, because some of these are legacy guys, the roofers, my production manager, we got to fix this problem. And you got to look at a problem as an opportunity to be a superstar. Because you could take a problem, solve that problem, and then become great, even greater. I used to see this a lot with high-powered music managers. They would literally create problems. They would create a problem and solve their own problem and look like superstars to their clients. So I've always kind of said, hey, it's not that I want to create a problem. So, we're customer obsessed. I hired a head of sales, came from another roofing company as their number one guy. And there's a lot of money in roofing. I mean, you could be a salesperson. You can make anywhere from 150 to 500 grand a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the plan with do you have a plan? Is this I want to build it up to, let's say it's.
No interest in selling.
This is a keep forever. Cash flow business. It's
so hard to it'll be so hard to replicate what I'm going to be able to do with this cash wise. B, I like to have something for my kids. And I truly love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, before here, I was meeting with somebody about, 11 roofs they need to do. So I love it. We're great at it. We're able to offer warranties that other people can't. I'm licensed. I got my license.
Congrats.
Thank you. The seller works for me. I just got this wealth of, I've got all these people behind us that are super knowledgeable, and I'm still learning, but I know enough about what it takes to get a roof, done properly.
How are you going to grow it? What's the strategy? Because so on a different note and kind of very parallel, I have a lot of real estate operators and owners who also didn't do a lot of deals last year, and they're coming to me and they say, hey, what's this thing about these boring businesses? And I'm like, what do you mean boring businesses? They're like, like plumbing and roofing and all these cash flow, because
all of a sudden it's a trend now. Everybody's talking about it.
Right. And so, because you can buy them on 2, 3, 4 at max multiples, and you can get seller financing in some circumstances. And it's like buying a 4 GRM, right? Again, you're running a business, it's different than an apartment, but when these guys are buying 10, 12, 13 GRMs and you're getting a 4 GRM, it's just, and you can take it from revenues, let's say from $1 million to $5 million, that takes it from a 2x multiple to a 7x or something like that. It's just, private equity is a crazy kind of business, and values in business and the way they parcel these things together.
Right, as we get bigger, our multiple will grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's
not necessarily grow because 3x is applied
easier to sell.
There's much bigger.
Yeah.
You're casting a net of big money out there. So like you say, you're right. Like these smaller mom and pop guys, the big money is not looking at them usually. Somebody doing 2-3 million a year they're not interested in that.
Are you planning to buy other roofing companies and then roll them into yours?
Yes. Yeah, it's already in play. But again, I don't have equity.
Yeah.
Investors. That's something with the restaurant. I did have investors, even though the first one I was the largest investor.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that anymore. Because frankly, it didn't take a lot to buy this. And I just, even looking back, if I would have given away 20%, it would have made if I would have taken the cost it was to buy the deal, we've already made our money back in the first quarter. So I'm glad I didn't take investors, but not just for that purpose, that I just want to be in full control of this thing.
So actually I want to ask you, because I'm curious. As someone who wants to, let's say they want to invest in real estate, right? Or roofing or whatever it is. A lot of times you don't have a lot of money starting out, right? And so if you want to go and grow faster, other people's money, would you suggest that it's better to save and be the equity holder, not have partners, and start small, a duplex, a triplex, whatever? Or do you think it's better to raise money and buy a 10 unit, 12 unit, 16 unit building and have partners in it, and you can grow faster that way? What do you think, knowing what you know now, you'd suggest?
Yeah, they're totally different paths. And I've seen guys come out the last 5 years. There's one group that bought $5 billion, young guys. And they're turning stuff back in the bank right now.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I have the right answer. My answer would be this. If you're going to get in the business of investing, I'm not saying real estate's a bad investment. I think it's a bad choice for a career. Okay? If you're a young person that needs to make money to pay their rent, to put kids in school, whatever it is, it's very difficult. So if you're a syndicator and you're raising capital, and every 2 or 3 years there's some event, and you've done great for 24, 36 months, but then for 18 to 36 months, you're sucking wind. It's just a hard way to live. It's really, really hard way to live. So I think if you're going to invest in real estate today, unless you come from a family that could support that, or you're a Nepo baby, or you have a portfolio, I think you need a day job. And I think investing needs to be that's your side hustle. Because, anything you buy right, it's going to be worth more in the future. It's not the greatest business strategy. When people tell me it's going to be worth more in the future, I look at them like, yeah, pretty much everything's going to be worth more in the future.
And cost more and all that stuff too.
I invested in a bunch of deals with some guys. And if I would have just put the money in the stock market, would have crushed what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I just think that LA's reached a maturation in the market, a maturity in the marketplace, where what guys did 20, 30, 40 years ago, it's going to be very hard to replicate.
Yeah.
So now you got to find opportunity. And how do you find opportunity? You start going into fringier areas. You start looking at riskier deals. You start looking at deals that are not really, they're apartment plays, but there's a development component. Now you're in the development game. Now you're subject to permits. You're subject to all kinds of nonsense. And that's what happened to me. Like, I have a project in Phoenix right now, and it was a small deal, but it became a development deal. And because even though it was a great area, because the market was so frothy, you start kind of letting your guard down and taking bigger risks. Like the units and the tenant mix were awful. Great area. Like you look all around, mid-rise, high-rise, all brand new Class A, but just a really bad group.
Yeah.
And I mean, I closed escrow. The first month, no one paid. No one. 15 units. Second month, no one paid. No one's going to pay me.
In Phoenix. You don't hear that very often. People always talk about LA, rent control, but you don't hear that much in Phoenix.
So, yeah, it's not rent control, but it still took me 6 months to get rid of people.
Jeez.
And everything was stripped out of there. I mean, it's been a nightmare. So it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
So my point is, I don't know what the right path is. I think that if you have a day job working for Preferred Roofing as a salesperson, making $200,000-$300,000 grand a year, and you're taking some of that money and you're buying, you start off with a duplex and you live in one unit, you build that up. And here's one thing I will tell you, and we've all heard this. My biggest mistake and regret is selling properties.
Yeah.
Everything I sold, I regret. There's not one thing I don't regret. Not one.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So buy properties that you could hold on to and keep. And the way you sort of manipulate that asset is by refining when it's time. But don't fucking sell it. Don't sell it. You ask any major real estate guy, they wish that they bought more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or they
didn't sell that one.
I was a guy the other day in his early to mid 70s. 90% of our conversation is telling me all the shit he sold. That guy's very successful. But that's like, regret's a tough pill to swallow, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know the right path. I think if I were giving advice to my 22-year-old son, I would say start with the duplex, fix it up, get to a point where you could move out, refi, pull that money, go buy a triplex or a fourplex or a 6-unit. But I do think that real estate investing in LA is a very tough proposition right now. We haven't even talked about the crime. I mean, you want to talk about Koreatown? It's scary now, man. I had a deal on San Marino, and I saw it in front of my eyes. Like, I did a beautiful, I don't know if you remember that deal.
I remember.
2757, I think it was.
Yeah.
Did a beautiful remodel.
12 units? 12 or 8, something like
It was
that.
more than 8, yeah. Yeah. I forget.
It's beautiful. It's like an old...
It almost looked like something you'd see in Miami.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a little vision for it. Old-ass building. And I would get these sort of, young urban professionals. And they'd go in there. And they'd last 2 months. And they were scared.
Wow.
And there was a lot of crime. And guys would tag up the building. I'd even talk to like the little dudes in the neighborhood, like, leave my building alone. I brought somebody with me once to like talk to them, like, and
like, hey, chill.
Yeah, like these MS guys, like, guys, stop tagging my building. Go fuck with somebody else.
Yeah.
And they'd see that, and they were scared.
Yeah.
And this was 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think it's any better today. So I don't know. I think LA is a tough proposition. I always think that you could succeed, again, in any kind of environment, but you need to be you need to be very special at what you do.
And so next for you, build this roofing company to be the biggest badass roofing company in existence, or however big you want to build it, and continue to move into this cash flow boring business and just take your talents and everything that you've done and find a unique aspect and crank it up to 20.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely learned a lot from the restaurant business, and growth is great. And I do think roofing is so special because here's the thing. When the materials go up, they go up for all of us. Okay. Not all restaurants are created equal. So my friend owns Boa, right? He could charge, or South Beverly Grill, let's say, you could charge $27, $28, $29 for a burger. 32, whatever, because you have a $90 steak, and it's not a gastropub. It's South Beverly Grill is gastropub ish, but it toes the line of like, I would call like, light fine dining.
Hillstone. It's like, a little upper class.
Right. So you can get a piece of salmon there. You can get a steak. You can get a fried chicken sandwich. So not all restaurants are created equal. So when the price of beef goes up or the price of gas or labor, it's easier for those guys to pass it off to the consumer than other restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the smash burger exploded. Cheap to make, 2 ounce, whatever, 3 ounce burger. I don't know what they're, 2 ounce burgers. And even though the smash burger really to me was the answer to the thick plan check burger and the umamis of the world. Okay. That was just kind of the answer, all these artisanal coffee shops like Blue Bottle at one time or Le Colombe or even Alfred's is the answer to Starbucks, right? Starbucks is really, they're all pretty pricey now. So the answer to the plan checks of the world was the smash burger, because you can go in there and get a burger for $9, $10, $11, $12. It's a great experience. It's still a burger.
Mm-hmm.
The problem in that industry, again, to sort of emphasize what I'm about to get to, is you could pass with certain types of platforms the cost. In roofing, if shingles are 8% higher for me, they are for all my competitors. And that's all going to filter through to the consumer, unfortunately. Or fortunately, if you're on that side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the fact is, we are the Hillstone of roofing in my mind, right? So, we come super professional. You need to get a hold of us. 3 years, we're going to be in business. You call us on a Sunday at 3 a.m., someone's going to reach out fairly quickly. I mean, we have an AI answering service. It's AI and human, but it's super, super next level. Yeah. So we're not missing a call. So all the technology that we have at our roofing company, whether it's our CRM, the way we interact with people, the way we're looking at jobs, and our marketing is all like modern, right? So, I think for once, maybe in my career, whether I think we're going to go into a recession of some sort, I think we're in one right now. I think we're definitely in a local recession. I mean, how would you like to be in Hollywood, the business of making film right now? I will tell you, all the restaurants that I frequent that were busy a couple years ago are wide open. So, where this market's affected by real estate, a lot of people work in real estate, finance, entertainment. So I think with the roofing thing, I'm going to be able to capitalize on when the market does kind of slow down, keep other startups from happening, capitalize on the momentum that we have, that kind of thing.
I love it. Terry, thank you so much.
That's it. We're done
for being here. That's it.
Damn.
You crushed it. Was it hour and a half?
About
an hour and 4.
Hour and 4. Dude,
thanks, man.
You're the best.
You're better.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, it would mean the world to me if you could rate us 5 stars on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. It really helps us get our name out there and helps us get fantastic people like our guest to share their insights and knowledge with you. Again, my name is Taylor Avakian. I specialize in the sale of apartment buildings in Los Angeles and Southern California, and I look forward to sharing more of these conversations with you. See you in the next one.